When you stop chasing her, something unexpected happens. It's not silence, it's war, not on the outside, but deep within her mind. She starts overthinking, overanalyzing, and overfeeling. You think walking away ends the story? No, that's exactly when her obsession begins. And in this video, we're going to decode what really happens in her head. When you don't chase her, step 1. She questions her power. When you don't chase her, the first thing she confronts isn't you, it's herself. That silence you give her doesn't feel neutral. It feels like rejection in disguise. A silent verdict passed without words. And when that happens, her confidence doesn't crumble, but it shakes violently. You see, she has spent years mastering her femininity, learning how to carry herself, understanding how to hold attention without begging for it. She has curated an image that's meant to be irresistible. So when you break the pattern of pursuit, when you don't play the game that so many before you did, her mind doesn't just go quiet, it starts attacking her own worth. She starts wondering if she lost her edge, if the charm that once magnetized attention is somehow fading. She questions the timing of your indifference. Did she say something wrong? Was it how she looked? Was she too cold or too available? Her power has always come from knowing she could pull a man in without fully giving herself to him. She was used to being the flame, and men were the moths. But now, you're not moving, you're not chasing. And in her world, that silence feels like a power shift. And power shifts always provoke insecurity. What hurts her the most isn't the absence of your texts, it's the absence of your need. She starts to realize that maybe she's not as irreplaceable as she believed. Maybe she's not the one in control this time. And this isn't just a blow to her ego, it's a blow to her identity. Because women like her don't just survive on attention, they define themselves through it. When the attention disappears, she doesn't just miss the chase. She questions whether her feminine power is losing its edge. She replays every moment. The way she smiled at you, the way she played it cool, thinking it would ignite your desire. She reanalyzes it all, wondering if she misread the situation, wondering if the moves she thought would draw you closer actually pushed you away. And it drives her mad, because if she miscalculated you, what else has she been wrong about? That's when her self-assurance begins to wobble. She doesn't let the world see it, but internally, the war has begun. The war between who she thinks she is and what your silence is making her feel. The truth is, she built her emotional empire on the ability to control male attention. It was her unspoken currency. It made her feel desired, chosen, alive. But when that currency stops working on you, she doesn't just feel poor, she feels powerless. And a woman who is used to control will always unravel when she senses she's no longer holding the strings. That unraveling doesn't come in tears or tantrums. It comes in silence, in overthinking, in staring too long at a screen hoping your name appears. Not because she loves you, but because she needs to know her power still works. She needs to know she still matters. Step 2, she begins to observe you closely. When you don't chase her, she doesn't walk away. She watches silently, carefully, intensely. And the moment you step out of the expected rhythm, she leans in without moving an inch. You think she's gone cold, detached, disinterested? No, she's doing what powerful women do when the game changes. She studies the opponent, but not with resentment, with curiosity. With quiet feminine calculation. Your refusal to chase doesn't dismiss you from her mind. It elevates you to the center of it. You're no longer a player in the game. You've become the puzzle. And if there's one thing that pulls a woman in deeper than attraction, it's mystery. And right now, you are unreadable. Every little thing you do becomes data. Every delay in response, every decision not to double tap her story, every moment of your silence becomes a symbol, a sign, a signal she's trying to decode. She watches how you carry yourself without her validation. She pays attention to your routine. Who are you giving your energy to? Who's in your circle? What's got your attention when she doesn't? And the more you don't give her a reaction, the more she becomes emotionally invested in trying to uncover your truth. You see, when a woman can't predict a man, she doesn't move on. She watches from the shadows, hunting for certainty. And here's the part most men don't understand. Women notice everything. Not because they're nosy, but because their intuition is their defense. When you stop chasing, you trigger a shift in her instincts. You no longer feel like a man who's emotionally exposed. You feel like a man with secrets. And that to her is both threatening and wildly attractive. She starts observing you the way a psychologist observes a patient, not just for what you say, but for what you don't. Silence to her is a language, and she listens to it deeply. She doesn't need to ask you anything. She reads between the lines. She checks the timestamps. She notices who you're engaging with. She sees when you're online. And even though you're not giving her attention, she knows where your attention is going, because now it matters. Before, you were a man drawn to her gravity. Now you've become a man in orbit, moving with your own force. And that shift makes you visible in a new, more powerful way. You're no longer one of the many men competing for her energy. You've become the only man who didn't flinch when she withheld it. And that makes her want to see who you really are when no one's watching. The more you remain composed, the more she leans into this private investigation. She's not chasing you, but she's dissecting you. She's looking for weakness, for signals, for something she missed. Because now it's not about wanting you, it's about understanding what makes you immune to the very charm that has pulled so many others in. That immunity isn't something she can tolerate. It's something she has to make sense of. And until she figures you out, she won't fully let you go. Step 3, she assumes you have options. When you stop chasing her, one dominant thought begins to swell in her mind. He must have options, not just any options, better options. Women don't assume you walked away because you're not interested. They assume you walked away because you're occupied, emotionally, mentally, or physically invested elsewhere. And that idea begins to gnaw at her because it's no longer about you pulling back. It's about who you could possibly be pulling towards. And the idea of another woman holding the attention that once lingered on her, that's not something she brushes off. It's something she feels in her gut. She replays everything, how quickly you stopped texting, how confidently you pulled away, how unfazed you seemed. And in her world, detachment doesn't come from peace. It comes from distraction. So if you're calm, if you're unbothered, if you're focused elsewhere, her mind doesn't believe it's because you're emotionally disciplined. No. She believes it's because someone else is filling the space she thought was hers. The feminine ego rarely accepts the idea that a man walks away to find peace within. It believes that if he's not orbiting her, then he's revolving around another. That thought injects insecurity, like venom through her veins, and suddenly your silence becomes more painful than any harsh word ever could be. What's even more disorienting is that she starts comparing herself to women who may not even exist. She imagines them smarter, softer, more alluring, more mysterious. She creates rivals in her mind, not because you've given her proof, but because her pride won't allow the possibility that you would choose solitude over her presence. That would mean she didn't impact you. That would mean she wasn't unforgettable. So she crafts narratives that make her feel better and worse at the same time. Better because you're still emotionally active. Worse because you're giving that energy to someone else. And here's the silent irony. She starts trying to outshine ghosts. She posts with intention. She dresses for war, not warmth. Her captions change. Her presence becomes louder, not because she's happy, but because she's trying to compete with the woman she thinks took your attention. She can't see her, but she can feel her. That invisible competition becomes her new obsession. Not because she wants you back necessarily, but because she wants to win. She wants to know she's still the standard, still the storm, still the one a man can't easily replace. All of this happens beneath the surface. She won't say it. She won't admit it. On the outside, she looks composed, detached, maybe even indifferent, but internally it's chaos, a chaos wrapped in pride and performance. And every time she checks your page or sees a new name in your likes, it stings, not because you're gone, but because your value has now increased in her mind. You're not just the man who didn't chase, you're the man who had the option to and chose not to. And that means you weren't desperate, you weren't thirsty, you weren't under her spell. You were discerning, you were scarce, and scarcity in her world equals power. Step 4. She tests you subtly. When you stop chasing her, she doesn't always come running. She doesn't immediately reach out, cry, or confess. No, she does something far more strategic, far more subtle. She tests you, but not in obvious ways. Her tests aren't loud, and they're never direct. They're hidden in the pauses, disguised as detachment, carefully designed to make you question your own resolve. She creates moments of silence, but they're not empty. They're loaded with meaning, with tension, with a quiet question. Lingering in the background, will he break first? This isn't manipulation, it's self-protection wrapped in performance. She wants to know if your distance is real or if it's just a tactic. So she creates space to see if you'll feel it. She holds back just enough to watch whether you'll lean in again. She delays her replies, posts something vaguely emotional, goes cold on purpose and pretends it's nothing. But everything is calculated. The selfie wasn't just a selfie. The story wasn't just a song lyric. The accidental online presence wasn't a coincidence. All of it is choreography, a dance to see if she still holds power over your attention. The reason she tests you isn't because she's unsure about you. It's because she's unsure about herself. She needs confirmation that her presence still lingers in your mind, that even in your silence, she still matters. These small acts are not pleas, they're probes. And if you respond too quickly, if you cave, if you show that you're watching, it gives her the reassurance she was silently hoping for. She wins. Not the relationship, just the emotional upper hand. She can breathe again, knowing she still has influence. But if you don't respond, if you stay composed, remain quiet, and keep walking with calm detachment, she doesn't feel powerful. She feels exposed because now she knows her energy no longer controls yours. That's when the test becomes a mirror. She sees that the attention she once commanded so effortlessly now slips through her fingers. And it's not because she failed to be beautiful or charming or emotionally provocative. It's because you refused to be predictable. You became immune to her patterns. And immunity is the one thing she's never had to deal with. She may start to get bolder, not out of confidence, but desperation. She might flirt with someone publicly. She might act like she's moved on. But these aren't declarations, they're diagnostics. She's observing what moves you, what breaks your silence, what pulls you back, if anything does. And when nothing works, when her most calculated silences and her most curated appearances fall flat, she feels something she doesn't know how to handle. Irrelevance. That's her greatest fear. Not heartbreak, not loss, just the brutal realization that her tests no longer penetrate your mind, that her pull no longer shifts your focus. Because once a woman realizes she can't control your attention, she's no longer testing you. She's testing her own significance. Step 5. She fears losing control. When you stop chasing her, something deeper than silence sets in. She begins to fear losing control. And not just over you, but over herself. Control has always been her anchor, her safety net, her silent weapon in emotional dynamics. She doesn't need to dominate. She only needs to know that she can influence, that her energy still sways the direction of the connection, that her absence makes you restless, that her silence stings more than any insult ever could. But when you show restraint, when you pull back and stay grounded, she realizes that grip is slipping, slowly, quietly, and it terrifies her. She's used to having leverage without force. It's not always about being loud or dramatic. It's about subtle authority, a raised eyebrow, a delayed reply, a story posted at just the right moment. She's mastered the language of feminine control, where every small gesture can cause a ripple in a man's emotions. She knows how to leave you wondering, second-guessing, reaching. So when none of that works, when you don't flinch, don't chase, don't fold, she feels something foreign creep in, helplessness. And helplessness to a woman who spent years perfecting emotional influence feels like drowning. The fear doesn't arrive with panic, it arrives in silence, in the quiet moments where she refreshes the screen, waiting for a message you're not sending, in the way she stares at her reflection a little longer, questioning if she still holds the same power she once did. Her thoughts become heavier, messier. She starts retracing her steps, trying to understand how she lost her position, how the script flipped. Because the moment she can't predict you, she can't lead you. And when she can't lead you, she starts to feel like she's losing the only language she's ever trusted: control. It's not just about you not chasing. It's about what that implies, that you're okay without her, that her presence didn't break your focus, that you're living, building, breathing without needing her to validate it. And that independence is what truly disrupts her. Because if you don't need her attention, then she's no longer the center of the story. She becomes a side character in a narrative she can't rewrite. And nothing is more frightening to a woman who's used to being the gravitational pull than realizing someone has become immune to her orbit. Her fear deepens when she realizes that emotional control isn't something she can demand. It's something she has to earn. And if you're no longer reacting, no longer reaching, no longer bending under her silence, then she starts questioning what's left for her to hold on to. What card does she have left to play? If beauty didn't shake you, if distance didn't affect you, if emotional provocation didn't summon you back, then you've taken away her most sacred form of currency, your attention. And without that, control begins to collapse from the inside, not in front of the world, not in public, but in the mirror, in her solitude, in those private battles she'll never confess to. Step 5. She rethinks her own value. When you don't chase her, she doesn't just question you, she begins to question herself, and not in the shallow, ego-bruised kind of way. It runs much deeper than that. It's not about why you pulled away, it's about why she wasn't enough to make you stay. She starts peeling back layers she never intended to touch, forced to sit in silence with thoughts she usually silences with attention. You see, women often don't measure their value in isolation. They measure it in reflection, in how the world, especially men, respond to them. And when your response is indifference, she's left without a mirror. And without that mirror, her sense of self begins to fracture. She replays the way she looked at you, the way she subtly hinted her interest, the charm she knows has pulled others in. And for the first time, none of it brought you back. That's when her confidence doesn't just waver, it starts to tremble, not because she isn't valuable, but because you no longer validate it. And it's in that absence, in that empty emotional space, that her mind spirals inward. Every compliment she's ever received now feels conditional. Every past relationship where she was chased now feels like